Hey, look what I got in the mail today. It's a box of packing peanuts. I guess I'm going to have to go empty the packing peanuts out and go see what's in the box. Well, I ordered this earlier this week, and I didn't expect it to get here that soon, but the seller did a great job of shipping it. Ah, yes, huh? Well, let's start with the big item. It is a Marantz PMD221 compact cassette field recorder. And we have a AC adapter for powering it from AC. Included is a pack of Maxell XL2 90-minute cassette tapes, which is very cool. And there's something else really heavy in here. This is a Shure omnidirectional SM90 condenser microphones with the power supply and the cables and the cords and all that. And it's a few days later. I've had an opportunity to work a little bit more with this kit. So first of all, this is a 0 Halliburton case. I've seen a lot of these Marantz PMD221s in terrible shape cosmetically, just banged up. There's quite a few of them being sold for parts only. But of the ones that are in really pristine looking shape and have been overhauled and working good, I've seen an average price of around $200 for these that are really in excellent shape cosmetically, like this one is in excellent working shape. If you had to piece these out separately, you'd be spending about $500. And I got this for a fraction of that, let's say. Okay, that said, it was a great value. So what about the condition of the Marantz unit? It was cosmetically in great shape. What about operationally? Let's talk about that. So when I finally had an opportunity to seriously check out this unit, I was using a Maxell type high bias 74-minute type cassette. And I noted several things. First of all, the very first time I tried to use the record mode with just the internal microphone, I got the loud feedback that you would expect because I was monitoring the playback and I had the volume turned up on the speaker. And after that, though, when I tried it again, I couldn't get any response hardly out of the microphone at all. The VU meter barely moved, even with the mic level turned all the way up. Okay, that was happening. Then I noticed when I plugged in an external microphone to the unit back here on the right side, I was getting good monitoring audio. I was monitoring the audio with a headphone jack, and I was monitoring in kind of like the record pause mode. The sound was really good. But recording it, and then when you play it back, I had this humming noise, kind of a buzzing or humming noise in it. And I ended up getting a pre-recorded cassette tape, playing it in there, and it had the same humming and buzzing noise. So that was kind of disappointing, and I thought I'd probably have to go into the unit and replace a lot of electrolytic filter capacitors in the circuit, probably the playback circuit like the amplifier. Of course, up to then I was using the AC adapter, the 4.5 volt AC adapter, but I do have the 3 D-cell batteries in here now, and it was doing the same thing with the D-cell battery, so I know it wasn't the power supply causing the noise. Plus, it didn't affect the recording, only the playback. So today, this morning, I went in and took the unit apart, dusted off some of my old consumer electronics repair skills from back in the 1980s when I used to repair stuff like this. And it came apart quite nicely. The top panel and the bottom panel are both metal, both aluminum. There's a few screws you have to pay attention to. Some of the screws, a lot of them are machine screws that thread into sheet metal that's been threaded, but some of the screws are self-tapping and go into plastic, so you got to keep track of where the screws are, and et cetera, et cetera. So anyways, I got the circuit board, which is on the bottom of the unit. I got the circuit board completely loose and folded it out. I only had to disconnect one connector, the connector for the VU meter and the record volume for this panel right here. And I was able to fold the whole circuit board out. And what I did is I took a spray electrical contact cleaner and I was able to go in and spray all the switches individually and then actuate the switches, and then the volume and all the rotary controls, all the switches and controls. And then I reassembled the unit and tested it, and I fixed the problem. So apparently the problem was an oxidized switch contact, and I'm guessing it was the record switch. Now, you may not be familiar with these unless you've worked on them, but on the main circuit board behind the cassette transport unit, there is a metal piece. And when you press the record play button, this metal piece moves, and it pushes a linear switch. And the linear switch has a lot of different electrical contacts on it. And the way this works is they're using the same circuit components for record as they are for playback, but they have to be rearranged in the circuit between record and playback. And so the record switch, when you go in the record mode, it slides this switch and it rearranges the wiring of the circuit for the record mode. Apparently, I'm thinking that those contacts were the ones that were dirty, because in the playback mode is where the noise was. It's probably caused by an oxidized connection. And so I reassembled all this, cleaned it up a little bit better, and boy, it is a pristine, beautiful machine, and it works great, and I'm extremely happy about it. I was also able to, when I reassembled it, the right edge of the door was hanging up a little bit on the right edge of the opening. I think the hinge on the back of this door has been tweaked a little bit, but I was able to reform it in such a way that it ejects without hanging up. But let me just pop a tape in here that I recorded earlier today and play it back for you. To the Shure SM90 flat plate hemispherical microphone with a fresh set of 9-volt alkaline batteries, recording into the Marantz PMD221 portable 3-cassette recorder. Looks like the meter is working, the levels are working, and everything. Okay, that was a little bit of recording I did earlier today with it after I fixed it. I'm going to be really having some fun, I hope, with this unit in the days and weeks to come, playing around with it as a field recorder. And I guess I didn't really show you all the features, but it does have this fancy little strap here, and goes around your shoulder like that, and you can plug your microphone in and do your field recording like that. You got the view of your VU meter and all that. So this is classic analog cassette tape, high fidelity field recording kit from the 1980s or 90s, maybe early 90s. So let me switch to the other camera, and I'll show you some of the features of this machine, some of the things I like about it. Well, we'll start with something as mundane as the strap. What I really love about this is the way you flip this little bracket back, and you can just remove the strap entirely, and these metal lugs screw right into the very chassis of the machine. I know that because I had to take it apart today. And to put it back in place, you simply put it in there and flip it back, nice and secure. And yeah, I love the strap. So we'll start on the left side of the unit here. We have the 4.5 volt DC connector for powering from AC adapter. There is an external speaker jack. It's a 3.5 millimeter jack, and you can power an external speaker with the same amplifier that drives the internal speaker of the unit. And of course there's a switch where you can turn off the external speaker if you want. The next switch is the setting for you select the kind of tape you're going to be using for recording and playback. Normal, chromium dioxide, or metal. So it's really cool. It has metal tape recording capability, even though they don't make metal tapes anymore. So on top of the machine, you have, we'll start over here on the right, you have your built-in microphone right here, which actually is a pretty decent little mic. I've tested it already. And then you have your tape counter. It's a 3-digit tape counter, and there's a reset button. And then there is a memory rewind. If you press this down when you're rewinding, it's going to stop at 0. So that's a really cool way to automatically stop to the beginning of your recording. And of course the controls here are very nicely laid out, and they have a nice feel to them. Your stop eject button, and I'll pop a tape in here just to show you, but put the tape in. Of course you can play the tape without needing to close the lid, and ejecting the lid is one control, one operation, and then ejecting the tape is the next operation. So it's really cool like that. This will also do cue and review, so you can go to playback and go forward or backwards and forwards, and of course pause. Very nice textured controls. Down here on the front panel, so you have your headphone jack on the left side, and this takes a 1/4-inch monaural plug, and this is probably a good time to mention that this particular unit is a monaural tape recorder. It does not have stereo, and you might think that that's a bad thing, but actually it means is that the tracks that are recorded on the tape are twice as wide as a stereo track would be, and therefore there is a better signal to noise ratio, which is kind of cool. So there's a level control next to the phone. This is the volume control for both the headphones and the internal speaker. And then there is a tone control. It has a center detent position, which is like a flat response. If you turn it counterclockwise, you'll cut the low frequencies. If you turn it clockwise, you actually will high cut the treble. So then this switch is really important. This is the monitor switch. With it out, it is monitoring the tape playback head. And if it's pushed in, it's monitoring the source, which is like the microphone or line input. So you have to know which mode you want to be in if you want to monitor the recording, the volume of it while it's recording. And this is a really cool control. This is the pitch adjustment. This controls the speed of the player. It has a center detent position, and you can slow the player down or speed it up, so you can compensate for tapes recorded on other machines that might have been recorded slightly off in speed, which is very neat. So next is your analog VU meter, and this is a wonderful meter to have, and it shows you the levels in record, and it shows you the levels in playback also. And now there is a optional speed that you can record at, like if you're doing conferences, recording conferences or meetings where the fidelity is not as important as the length of time, and you're concerned about not having enough time on your tape, you can flip this to the low speed, and it will record at a lower speed, non-standard for the compact cassette format, but you can of course play it back on this machine. But I would just basically keep it in the normal speed or standard speed all the time. Now the next switch down here is a 3-position switch for your record mode. This is your basic level control mode. There's a manual level control set by this dial here, which is a very nice record level control. And then there is a limiter mode. In the limiter mode, you still have control of the volume of the recording, the record level, but you have a little bit of limiting on the peaks of the volume. And then there's also an automatic level control mode where you do still have some level control, but it's more of an automatic level type control. And then on the right side of the player of recorder is your inputs. Starting at the bottom left, you have a standard microphone input. This is a monaural 3.5mm mic jack. There's a, what is this, a 2.5mm remote start-stop input where you can start and stop, pause the machine remotely. Then there is a mic attenuation switch, which is real handy. If the signal coming in is really loud, like you're recording live music, you can attenuate the volume of that so you don't overdrive the inputs. The automatic noise canceling switch, what this does, in the middle position it gives you a flat frequency response. In the upper position it rolls off both the high and the lows, and in the bottom position it rolls off just the lows. The next one is the input selector. The middle position is the normal position. You select between either the microphone input here or your telephone input. And yes, there is a telephone jack for a modular phone jack. You can record phone conversations. And if you put this switch to the line position, you can record line input, line level audio right there. It also has a line level output during playback, which is very handy for dubbing the output to another recorder like a digital recorder. And finally on the back is access to the 3 D-cell batteries behind this panel here. Well, this is probably not going to be the last you're going to see or hear from this machine. This is actually right now the only compact cassette player that I have, or recorder, in the house. And so it's, as I indicated earlier, it's a monaural device, so you're not going to be able to get stereo playback of a pre-recorded, commercially made stereo tape, for instance. The purpose of these machines was primarily in field recording, high-fidelity tape-based field recording, prior to the era of digital field recorders. And so I do have a pretty nice little Sony digital field recorder, but I'm going to be using this machine as well. I'm going to try working on playing and experimenting with getting into a little bit of field recording work and sound recording, and I hope to be able to make it interesting for you guys to make some videos that explore taking this old equipment, these old 20-something-year-old devices, and using them for their intended purpose here in the year 2018 or so. So anyways, I'm really excited about the whole kit that I got. It was such a great deal. I began to notice little things like our fridge was dead, the food inside slowly beginning to thaw. And though it was late afternoon, I knew nightfall would soon be here, and we maybe had a few weak flashlights and birthday candles. It would be a long night, especially without the comfort of air conditioning. Cassettes are cool. Tape is cool. It has a longevity, a stability, and security to cassette tape. Doesn't have, obviously, quite the fidelity of a digital recording, but it has other attributes that I think in some ways make up for it. If anything else, I certainly love the physical nature of the tapes themselves and how they can be archived and saved over the years, and I love that. That's, if nothing else, that's great in itself. But this is Joe Van Cleve. This is episode 3 of the tape series. Until next time, you guys have yourselves a great day.